Copyright, Jae C Associated Press. Former Ohio State and Jacksonville Jaguars coach Urban Meyer is once again drawing pleas from a desperate college football fan base, this time from Nebraska. Jae C Associated Press. The day's biggest headlines were written Saturday morning in America's heartland before a minute of football had been played, when a confluence of unfortunate events led to a rowdy crowd of Nebraska fans feeding the ever-hungry ego of college football's most controversial iconic former head coach. "We want Urban," they chanted toward the smug and smiling Urban Meyer, who had his back to the adoring throng on the set of Fox's Big Noon Kickoff weekly pregame show in Lincoln, Nebraska. Like everything that happens in the sport these days, some of this scene was simply made for TV. Even the Fox crew egged on the Big Red faithful, who entered Saturday's meeting with old rival Oklahoma still reeling from their team's loss to Clay Helton's Georgia Southern Eagles a week prior. The result triggered the immediate firing of Nebraska alum Scott Frost. But some of the love showered upon Meyer, the former national championship winning coach at Florida and Ohio State, was also very real. Despite all of his past issues and the inevitable baggage that comes with him. If you found yourself confused, it should have started to make more sense as the rest of Saturday's slate unfolded, especially how it ended, with Lincoln Riley's no. 7 USC Trojans methodically putting down one of the most ferocious underdogs out there, the Fresno State Bulldogs, 42-17 in front of a national audience. In just its third game under Riley, USC was cold in its precision, which, of course, is exactly what it paid for last November when it pried Riley out of Oklahoma in the dead of night. The Trojans, who will travel to play fellow unbeaten Oregon State this upcoming Saturday, appeared to get better from week 2 to 3. Like at Stanford, the game was never in doubt. USC jumped to a 21-3 lead by scoring on its first 3 drives, but this time there was no second-half letdown. The Trojans are now winning the turnover battle 10-0. 3 weeks into this season, the judgments of which coaches are elite and, therefore, worth the astronomical investment, are no longer snap. USC, no matter what happens from here in 2022, is evidence that the right head coaching hire can paint an entirely new and refreshing trajectory after one strategic offseason. Watching Riley's team at 3-0, you have to squint to see 4-8 in the rearview mirror. Saturday, there were many examples to the contrary. Once again, Notre Dame struggled under first-year coach Marcus Freeman. If not for a dropped Hail Mary pass from California quarterback Jack Plummer in the Notre Dame end zone, the Fighting Irish would have been headed to overtime against the Golden Bears. Instead, Notre Dame held on 24-17. That's how Freeman won his first game as the program's head coach after 3 losses to begin his tenure, including one last week at home to Marshall, which lost Saturday to Bowling Green. "It's hard to win football games," a relieved Freeman said afterward. Thus far, it hasn't looked hard for USC. That moment will come, but it's arrived much faster at Louisiana State, which lost its debut under Brian Kelly to Florida State, and at Florida, where Billy Napier's Gators were a South Florida field goal away from a terrifying trip to overtime Saturday. No such fear has entered the atmosphere among USC fans just yet. True happiness fight on. It should be noted that his tweak came in the first quarter. That's how quickly the game was over against a respectable Fresno State team that beat UCLA at the Rose Bowl last season. Riley's turnaround of the Trojans, as tantalizing as it probably looks from afar, could be a toxin disguised as an elixir for a program in Nebraska's situation. Sure, Nebraska and USC share a trait as traditional blue bloods which fell on hard times in the 2010s. As of June, they also left their conference to join the Big Ten, albeit a decade apart. The commonalities end there, truly. Ironically, a year after the Trojans canned Clay Helton because of an embarrassing Game 2 loss, the Huskers waved goodbye to Scott Frost because he lost to Helton, now the coach at Georgia Southern. Nebraska could have bought Frost out for $7.5 million on October 1st, but was so desperate to move on, it agreed to pay him $15 million early last week. For many reasons, proximity to talented recruits first among them, Nebraska is unlikely to rebuild as quickly as USC has under Riley. Everyone knows this, which is why the Cornhuskers won't be able to go poach a can't-miss coach from a big program like the Trojans did. Frost, the native son, was the home run hire and he whiffed. The desperation for relevancy, to feel like USC fans get to feel now every Saturday, has only increased. And Urban Meyer, despite getting fired less than a full season into his disastrous tenure leading the Jacksonville Jaguars and questions about how he handled domestic violence allegations involving his Ohio State staff, is the clearest path through the corn maze. Nebraska has other intriguing options to pursue. Intriguing, not intoxicating. Washington's Kalen DeBoer, in much quieter fashion than Riley, has revitalized his program in one offseason. 11 Michigan State 39-28 on Saturday night in Seattle. Kansas Lance Leipold, who has won in every head coaching job he's had, has the Jayhawks 3-0 for the first time since 2009 after back-to-back impressive road wins at West Virginia and Houston. These kinds of traditional candidates could end up being great hires for Nebraska Athletic Director Trev Alberts, but they won't get a crowd lustily chanting. Because Nebraska won't be appealing to a guy like Lincoln Riley, who already has it made, the school will feel pressure to consider a guy like Urban Meyer to achieve the same effect. Copyright, Stephen Brashear/Associated Press, Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr., right, throws a touchdown pass in front of Michigan State defensive back Chester Kimbrough Saturday. Stephen Brashear/Associated Press, the Pac-12 championship race got a lot more interesting on Saturday when Washington knocked around Michigan State and no. The Huskies, led by Indiana transfer quarterback Michael Penix Jr., look capable of competing with Utah and USC. DeBoer, who came from Fresno State, deserves a ton of credit for bringing that offense back to life after years of boring, predictable play. Dan Lanning got his first big win as Oregon's coach just 2 weeks removed from a humbling beatdown against Georgia. Auburn transfer quarterback Bo Nix may have played his best college game. Add in Washington State, which improved to 3-0 and has that win at Wisconsin in its back pocket, and this is the best the top of the Pac-12 has looked as a whole since 2016. Copyright, Myung Jae Chun/Los Angeles Times, UCLA quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson scrambles for 2 yards against South Alabama during the third quarter Saturday at the Rose Bowl. Myung Jae Chun/Los Angeles Times, UCLA sure looks like it's in trouble after needing a last-second field goal to beat South Alabama. After all, this is year 5 for Chip Kelly. The Bruins will have to clean up their execution. The game would not have been that close if not for the laughable unforced errors. We'll find out whether Kelly deserves the 6th season when the Bruins play Washington, Utah, and Oregon in a row. As of now, that looks like an 0-3 stretch. But first, the Bruins face an awful Colorado team. Copyright, David Zaliabowski/Associated Press, Colorado coach Karl Dorrell watches from the sideline as his team plays Air Force on September 10th. David Zaliabowski/Associated Press, UCLA fans remember how nice Karl Dorrell is. They also remember how that wasn't enough. Colorado lost to Minnesota Saturday 49-7 and is now 0-3. Dorrell's ouster seems a foregone conclusion. The same can be said for Georgia Tech's Jeff Collins after Mississippi beat the Yellow Jackets 42-0 in Atlanta. Auburn coach Brian Harsin's days are likely numbered, too, after Penn State dominated the Tigers 41-12. This story originally appeared in Los Angeles Times.